All right. We are live. We are live. We are live. Good evening, everyone. I was just laughing at just making sure we're live, just checking in. All right. Hope you guys are well. Checking in for our Monday evening series. All right. Nice. I'm seeing we are live on both platforms, Facebook and LinkedIn. Good evening, everyone. I hope you guys are great. Hope you guys are doing well. All right, got a little distracted there. All right. So once you're in and you're on the inside, just let me know that you're in and you're hearing me well and that you are seeing me also. I believe we're good. All right. Welcome, 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 welcome. We are on our ninth part of this 10-part series. Next week, Monday, will be the end. All right. And I always, when I do lives, I always tell persons that my intent is to do lives more consistently, but sometimes I'm not always able to, but I want to fix that. So let me officially welcome everyone to this series, the National Leadership Series. All right, we are on session 9 today. And if this is your first time joining in, welcome, welcome, welcome. We will be discussing national leadership and what it means to lead in a national space. And if it is you have been with us last week or any of our previous sessions, then welcome back. We're so happy that you continue to join in with us. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. We really, really, really appreciate it. All right, so you can take a moment and share in your various groups or platforms. And I also want to say, oh my, it slipped me there. I also want to say, why did my mind go blank? I got a little bit distracted there. But thank you so much for joining in and being a part of what it is we are doing. Thank you to all the feedback that I get, all the comments. I really, really appreciate it. All the messages, persons talking with me and letting me know that they see and they hear and they appreciate the comments and the content. All right, I really appreciate that feedback. It lets me know if it's making sense. That's what I was going to say. Those who will be looking at the replay after the fact, please put hashtag replay so I would know that you're looking at the replay, or send me a comment or a DM and let me know that you are looking at it. All right, so very quickly, I'll introduce myself. If it's the first time that you're seeing me, I'm Safia Johnson, founder and CEO of Safia Group, and we're a multidisciplinary agency, multidisciplinary team, right, that really helps clients get to that next level of success where you can access one or combination of our services: accounting, HR, strategic planning, or leadership development. All right. It's always our passion to ensure that our clients succeed. Your success is our passion, and it's not just something that we say, it's something that we live, it's something that we do. When our clients win, we win. All right. Just today, I was actually on a podcast, actually in a podcast recording. And one of the things that we were discussing was the transition that I made out of corporate into entrepreneurship, and how that leap for many persons can be quite difficult. And I was in business before. This just has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about, national leadership, just dropping this in. I was in business before 2009 and failed seriously. I had a serious failure in business and lost quite a lot of money, well over $1 million. Lost my home and I lost so many things. Not to mention the embarrassment that comes along with it, the fear, and so many negative feelings, just this overwhelming sense of failure and aloneness after you've invested so much, not only of your money, but time, resources. And I will tell you this, I was also someone who taught in the area of business and accounting for many, many years. Taught from the CXC level all the way up to the master's level. And, that stark reality that, there are persons who might be in entrepreneurship, teaching entrepreneurship, even at the master's level, doctorate level, and have never been an entrepreneur, or teaching business and would have never been in business because the rubber hits the road. And sometimes all those theories that you may teach, they do not translate when it is you're on the ground and in business. And having that failure and having to go again, just knowing that I'm meant to be in business, and a decade later, after having to go back out into the working world and pay off your debts and do all these different things, and coming to go again and looking at business from a completely different perspective and having a completely different experience, and having this, this program that I specifically designed. I don't really market it very often because it's not the main thing that I do, but a lot of people do come up to me and ask about that transition from corporate, from being an employee into being your own boss. And it's not as simple as people would think it is, or they may want it to be. And it's a bumpy ride, but you just have to know if it's for you. I can tell you this honestly, entrepreneurship is not for everyone, but it can be. It certainly can be. But the expectation that you may have on it, looking at it from the outside, that's not what it is when you're coming on the inside. All right. And that particular program, Shake the Ground, I did it out of realizing so many people tiptoe. So many people tiptoe through life. So many people afraid to shake where they are, afraid to shake the status quo, afraid to step out of the box that people think you need to be in and color outside of the lines. So many people are scared because you've made commitments to people, your family, you have mortgages and cars and all of these different things. But really what it says is that I trust in this system more than I trust in myself. Because I grew up with my grandmother. God bless her heart, she's deceased now. And I always tell persons, don't be upset with your parents or grandparents. They give you what they can based on what they have. And they do their best based on what they know, based on what they have. But now that you know better, you have the responsibility to do better for those coming behind you. And she would always say to me, Safia, go to school, do well in school, then get a government job, because they can't fire you. They don't fire you, right, in government job, which is not a good testament of our public service. All right, people, there need to be consequences to actions. And then get your house, get your car, and then you're good for life. The thing is, by age 23, I had done that. And then I was like, what next? I went to school, I did well, I got the government job, I bought the home, I bought the car, and then what next? What next? I wasn't designed to exist. You are not designed to just exist. You were designed with a particular blueprint, with a particular fingerprint that only you alone have, that this world needs to feel, to experience. There is only one you. One person said to me, oh my God, Safia, I want to be just like you. I said, that would be a crying shame, because the world doesn't need another me. The world needs a you. All right? And so just believing in yourself that you don't need to tiptoe anymore. You need to shake the ground. We need to feel the vibrations of your footsteps in this world. And it's not easy. Not everyone would support you. Even the people you expect to support you wouldn't support you. That's fine. That's fine. 7.6 billion people in the world, that's fine. There will be persons who are designed to support you, who are called along, who are your tribe, who are waiting for you to show up. And I don't know why I'm saying this. This was not part of the whole script. We were supposed to be talking about national leadership, but perhaps someone needs to hear this today. And it just triggered my memory because I was on the podcast recording today, that it's time for you to shake the ground. It's time for you to step up. It's time for you to trust yourself. It's time for you to bet on yourself. And the thing is, in business, there will be difficulty. We're in difficult periods. Right now, my business is in a difficult period. But it's not in a detrimental period. Everything has difficulties, every relationship. I mean, you would be in an organization for 20 years, for 10 years, 5 years. There will be difficulty and you would stay. You're going to go to work every day and you're going to give your best, even though it may not be what it is you want. You need to give your business the same kind of commitment, even in the ups and downs, even when things are not the way you want it. You need to get up and go every day and do it. In the end, you will be grateful that you did. All right. So even though I've been doing leadership and accounting for decades, Safia Group is just shy of 4 years. In November, we'd be celebrating 4 years. And I mean, I am so thankful that I took the leap. I am so thankful that I stepped out in spite of fear. Because the fear is going to be there, The fear is not going to go anywhere. But you have to feel that fear and do it anyway. Take the step anyway. But remember, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. And if it's not for you, that's fine too. That's fine too. Then shake the ground in your career, shake the ground in the office that you work in, shake the ground in the organization you choose or the field you choose to stomp in. Shake the ground there. All right. Entrepreneurship is not the only path to success. Yeah. But if it is you desire that path, then choose it. All right. So that's just a little encouragement to someone. Shake the ground. Hi guys, good evening. Shake the ground. Let us feel the vibrations of who you are as a person. You didn't come to this world to just exist. You came to make an impact. So make an impact, all right, in your way, in your own way. All right. And the thing is, persons might have heard already, a lot of what I do involves talking. Right? And I was made fun of for many years because of my voice, because of the depth of my voice. I was told that I sound like a man and all these different things, and I didn't speak well, and I wasn't eloquent, and you named it. You name it. And from school, even in workplaces, who would have thought that my career and business now is all surrounded by speaking? All right. So, guys, we're going to jump into the content for today. So, that was for somebody. That was for somebody. I don't know who it was for, but that was for somebody. Take heart, be encouraged, take the step, take the leap, go for it. Go for it. Get advice, get support. And the support may not always come from where you want. Let me just give you an ouch moment. Sometimes your support may not even come from within your own home. It may not come from within your own family. And that is okay. That is okay. Take the leap still. All right? The world needs you. All right. So we're jumping in. We're going in. And if at all, anyone wants to connect with me, we do have our consultation. It's absolutely free. It's only for 15 to 20 minutes, but definitely will allow me to hear your specific situation more directly, and then I can give you advice on the best next steps. Yeah, if it may be working with us, if it may be working with someone else. For me, it's about you winning, right? It's always about you winning, all right? And you winning may not be working with us, or you winning may be working with us. Yeah, but it's always about you winning, all right? Take that step. All right. So we're doing national leadership and leadership in the national space. And particularly today, we want to talk about the language of leadership. There's a language of leadership. And when I deal with my clients, I always tell them about the language of leadership. And we're going to delve into that a little bit more. And I'm going to say now for the 9th time, because it's our 9th session, I just want to talk about who are the leaders at this national level. Anyone with responsibility to serve the public in some form or fashion, anyone with responsibility for an area, service, or product that is of significant public interest, all the members of our government. And that can be the elected officials who may be the executive, the opposition, the legislative arm, local government, even the heads, which is the boards and executives of any public entities. And it could be public services like transport, water, electricity, or even any of the protective services. even the executives and boards and state agencies, any other type of agency owned and controlled by the government, and any national voices that influence the minds of the public, and you have the media and you have other national influencers. Something that someone says can get into the mind of someone very, very easily. And that's why the language of leadership is so critical. Now, last week we shared on preparing yourself for national leadership, and many leaders get into leadership in the national sphere and they do not prepare, and that's why many of them end up, with a lot of challenges. So, if it is you haven't seen that video or any other video, we have them all on our YouTube channel at Safia Johnson on YouTube. All right, so certainly you can hop across and take a look at that video, all the rest of videos in the leadership national leadership series, as well as other videos on leadership. But today we're jumping into the language of leadership. All right, and let me know where you guys are chiming in from. All right. I know there's some the TNT peeps always on, and I appreciate you guys so much. All your support just for being here. You could have used your time to be anywhere else, but you choose to be here with me, and I really appreciate it. But you can just drop your flag or put in where you're from. I'll absolutely appreciate it. All right, so let's jump into the language of leadership. So when I talk about the language of leadership, or language on the whole, it has to do with the method and system of communicating, right? Language has to do with the method and system of communication. When I listen to leaders, and it could be in any environment, but this series we're talking about leaders in the national space. When I listen to the leaders, when I look at them, you can tell their style of leadership, their pattern, not leadership, their style of their language, their pattern of communicating. All right? There's some who are historians. They come and they give a whole history. All right? They take you back before they take you forward. That's because their belief and the way they believe communication is effective is people need to understand certain foundational elements in order for them to understand what you're saying right now. The other leaders that will not necessarily go the history route, they shoot from the hip, right? They come in to deal with an issue and they come in and they shoot it from the hip, or they may come in very emotional. They're differently. So they listen to the leaders and you see their pattern, all right? The pattern of their language, the pattern of how they speak, how they communicate, how they give information, how they celebrate, how they may call out something or check someone. All right. I'm just giving it generally before we zero in on the national space. And that language is used to communicate with two groups of people: your team, the people who are with you and supporting you in accomplishing this vision. All right. And they may be within your organization, they may be outside of your organization, but they form part of the support network that helps you to accomplish the vision. All right. And helps you to be effective in the office that you hold. And then there's another group of people that you have to communicate with, which is the public, because you may be dealing with national leadership. And I said in a previous session that when I say public, it can be several publics. It may not necessarily always be the entire citizenry, because you may be called upon to serve a very specific or narrow group of the public, but the public nonetheless. And in some cases, you may have to speak to the entire nation, the entire citizenry. And so it's so important for leaders to understand, especially national leaders, because those within a corporate setting, I think I may take off my glasses a little bit, or maybe go on and off, right? Some persons may know that I had a little thing with my eyes some time ago, and so I'm getting a little bit of a issue there again. So forgive me. So when it comes to persons leading in the corporate, sometimes their positions doesn't require them to interact with the public, just only private. All right. And as far as they will go, it's probably all the staff members of the organization, maybe the board, shareholders, other key stakeholders, but not necessarily the national public. The national public is a different beast altogether, right? And so when it is you in a national space, and again, it's not only politicians, but yes, politicians. And when elections are coming around, you hear politicians, you see them, they're in your face all the time because they are campaigning. They are doing what they ought to do. All right, so you can't get upset. They are doing what they ought to do to get the result that they may be looking for. But the point I'm making is when it is you come into national leadership, you have the very specific role of also communicating with the public. It may be the narrow public that you're called upon to serve, and or it may include the general national citizenry. All right. And so your language of leadership, how you communicate is very, very important because the way you communicate with your team is going to be very different from the way you're going to communicate to the public. Recognizing also that in some cases, you have to make the public your part of your team. You have to call on them. You have to elicit support from them in some cases. All right. And so how you do that and how you communicate that is very, very, very important. And that's what I want to talk about today. All right. That's what I want to talk about today. And sometimes, depending on the position that people sit in, and remember, I talk sometimes about apex leader, especially if they sit in the apex position in that or in any particular organization. Sometimes they may forget that the population, the wider public, doesn't report to them like their team members in their organization. So the way in which you address the public, the level of respect you give the public, the way that you understand that people are not stupid, you respect their level of intelligence, and you respect the fact that you are accountable to the public. The way you communicate and the language that you use will reflect that. And so if you listen closely to leaders, and we have the politicians as an example, we have heads of police, for example. You all would have definitely seen the brawl in Montgomery, Alabama. All right. If you haven't seen it, it'll probably pass across your timeline at some point. The Mayor Reed, came out and made a statement. That's a method of communicating. And the language, I looked at the language in the statement, and it was very specific language. It was language meant to de-escalate and to disarm any potential national, statewide, or even community-wide reprisal. It's meant to ease things down because there was a full-on brawl. And the leaders can incite or quell matters based on what they see. You have in the US with President Trump being held accountable for statements he made that they're linking now to the January 6th insurrection that occurred on the Capitol Hill in Washington. Because the language of leadership, and leaders can try to back out and say, no, I didn't tell anybody to do anything. But your language speaks volumes. All right, your language speaks volumes. And any leader who understands that can use it effectively to influence the public and their team towards a particular goal. All right, I hope you're following me. All right, so what a leader says and does, because we communicate also through our actions. In fact, our actions are one of the most powerful communicators. And I will talk about that today. It's one of the most powerful communicators as a leader. Now, what a leader says and does impacts more deeply than someone who is not a leader, especially to the person who is following that leader. All right. So there are things that leaders can, that persons can say and do that a leader cannot say and do, because it just hits differently if a leader says it or does it. All right. And let me put it into the family setting to give you for example. All right. Because in the family setting, there are leaders also in the family environment. And when I teach on leadership, I always indicate that the principles are transferable into different environments, including the family environment, even though there may be some very specific dynamics. But persons can tell you all sorts of things about yourself, bad things. All right, let's just say persons think you to be stupid. All right, and you may have heard a colleague, someone in school, someone in the workplace tell you that you're stupid. But let's just say a parent tells you you're stupid, it hits differently because of the position of that parent, because of the position of that parent in your life, their role. That's a for example, because it's easy to understand in a family environment. When you take that into a leadership role, it could be in the workplace, and we're talking about from a national leadership perspective, and we're talking about it from these two perspectives, talking to your team and talking to the public. The things that you can say that will hit very, very differently that someone who's not in your position will get away with. And so there is a different standard for leaders because people look up to you. Persons expect a particular level of acknowledgement and approval from you. And I will tell you this, people may behave as if they don't want it. But generally, people want to know that they're in the good graces of their leaders. There is a book that I wrote that is coming out soon, Just Lead, the Powerful Playbook on how good managers become great leaders. And there is a chapter in there called the Parenting Parallel. And that Parenting Parallel speaks about there are elements in parenting that are relevant and applicable to leadership. And one of them is that affirmation element that children look for from parents, persons look for from their leaders. And so if it is you say something, persons, especially if they willingly follow you, if they really, and this is persons who choose to follow you, right? They connected with you as their leader. One, they're looking for that affirmation. So they will seek to do what you have said. And that is why you have leaders saying something from a platform, saying something from a mic, and somebody who they do not know of somewhere in a village or community, somewhere taking action based on what they have said. Because that person would have connected to that leader. All right? And they want to follow the leader. And so when you say something as a leader, you may be saying, I didn't tell anybody to do that. But yes, you did. Because you have to understand the power of your language over the persons who follow you. All right? And you have to also understand that when you're expressing disapproval and you express it in a way that is belittling or damaging, the impact is so much more on the persons who follow you. So you have to be so careful with what you say. You cannot say things lightly. And this could be in a closed door meeting. It can be in a public setting. What you say and do not say is powerful as a leader. And it is multiplied in its impact on the persons who follow you. All right, so you cannot say things lightly. You have to be very careful with your words. You have to be very careful with your phrases and what you choose to say because the impact of it will be seen. All right, and that is why you have, how was Hitler able to do what he did? It was through what he said. People took that to heart. As I mentioned earlier, the insurrection in the US, why did people travel from different states to come to Washington on that particular day, at that particular time, to storm the Capitol? Because there were words spoken that then led to the orchestration of something in the back end that then led to this very coordinated response. And if it is you're not careful, look for it, make the connections. All right, so I want you now to be so much more aware. That's one of the big things when I teach on leadership. Become more aware now that I'm sharing it with you. Look at the pattern. Look at the things that are being reported in the media, whether it be on crime, whether it be on statements made, whether it be on actions taken by groups of persons, and trace it back to statements made by leaders. You're going to see a pattern forming. And I'm talking about, it can be any national leader. Any national leader. What causes unions to tell their employees, to tell their members, hey, we're going to strike? It is because there is a breakdown of communication. Or you may find that HR manager or somebody in the negotiation, they find to be very flippant to what the demands of what the union is making for on behalf of the workers. Those little simple things can result in a huge outcome. All right. So leaders, your language is huge, significant impact. And I just want to touch on just a few areas that I want us to pay attention to as leaders. This is not an exhaustive list. There's so many others. And when I'm working with a leader, we go into different dynamics. And some persons, based on where you are, you may be very strong on some of them. But in other areas, you may need to work on. It's fine. You know, my famous saying, weaknesses don't make us weak, they make us human, right? So once you identify where you need to build, then just build. All right. Don't think it makes you any less of a leader. All right. You're just building your skill set. You want to become a more and more skilled leader. All right. And that means that they can drop you into any environment and you would lead and lead well and lead effectively. All right. And so some areas I want to touch on. One, vocabulary, talking about language. And so literally the words that you use, your choice of words. And your choice of words must be aligned to the audience that you're seeking to communicate with. Very, very important. You don't want to use a language that doesn't connect with the audience, that is either above or below the intellectual capacity and level, or even outside of their cultural understanding. You don't want to do that because you run the risk of being offensive. It's nothing to you, but if you come and say that in this particular setting to this particular people, it's serious offense. You have to know that. You have to understand the micro and subcultures in your country, because we did with national leadership. You have to understand, and I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, beautiful country, Twin Island state. And let me just give a for example, because it's here I live, even though I frequent the US and I understand certain things in the US. So you might hear me pulling from there sometimes. But let's use Trinidad and Tobago. Every community in this country has a different culture. We have local government elections going on now, but there is a lot of talk from the platforms with general election issues. And it could be that the political battle is at that stage, so it evokes these general election topics and these general election promises and conversations, but we are forgetting the local election people. And people are not getting an opportunity to truly hear from, learn, and understand the people who will be representing them at the local level, because the general election persons and candidates are fighting. And the thing is, what leaders need to understand is that every community has a different culture. Different. There are subcultures and microcultures in the entire country. Though we're small, 1.4 million people, but there are different cultures. And what you may say, even in the examples you may use, when you're in Diego Martin, you can't use that in Toko as opposed if you go down Penal or Siparia. It's just different. And you have to respect and appreciate the differences of the people and the differences of the issues that they face. And so that you use a language that is relevant to them, that says that I know you, I see you, I hear you, and I understand you. And that way I can help you. But when we speak at these very national, high-level issues, the community level isn't seen. They aren't heard. They aren't even recognized. And I don't think the people are seeing that. And so what you're going to find happening is people are going to go into the voting booth and vote for general elections, even though it's a local government elections. Because that is how they're being baited, just by the language being used. But I want us to understand that the very vocabulary, we have the whole uproar right now with the opposition leader and the language that she would have used to promote the stand your ground position that they're advancing. And I'm not here to debate whether I agree or I don't agree. I'm not here to debate that at all. What I'm drawing your attention to is language. Language. Now, the opposition leader could have taken an intellectual approach to promote her position and the position of her party. She took another approach, which was the approach of using the language purportedly of youths and one segment of youths, because you would understand that the majority of youths don't use that language. If it is, we understand our cultures and subcultures. It's one group, right? Now, that's choice. But the language has impact, as you saw. For those who live in Trinidad and Tobago, language has impact. And so the vocabulary you use is so critical, right? So critical. And the phrases, the choice of words, how you're going to bring it home, how you're going to evoke emotion and connection with what you're saying. You get to choose that as the leader. All right. And I would say this about vocabulary. When it is you're dealing with persons, you must not only appeal to their intellect, you must appeal to their heart. Because people may take actions based on emotions. Hi, Keston. So it's not, and people may think themselves above it, but it's human nature. All right, it's human nature. Our programming impacts our thoughts impact our feelings, which is our emotions, and then based on our feelings or emotions, we take actions, and based on actions, we get a result. And so if it is you have to connect with somebody, if you have to speak to them, communicate with them to get that connection, to get their response, to get influence for them to take action, which is leadership, you have to also speak to their emotions. You have to speak to their heart. You have to speak to who they are as a person. You have to speak to who we are as people, not just our minds. All right? And so your words, your choice of words must do that. The other thing I want to touch on is tone. And remember, I'm talking about it both from the context of, even though I may use some examples from the public, remember, I'm talking about it in the context of both your team and the public, because leaders in the national space have to speak to both categories of people, and you cannot speak to both of them the same way. All right? Your tone. And that accounts for more than 50% of communication. Because I can say something, but my tonality rarely tells you where I'm going with it. All right. And you have tone in written communication, you have tone in verbal communication, you have tone all over. All right. So the tone that you take is so important. And many people lose the leadership battle based on their tone. I can tell you that. There are leaders who go into leadership, but because they just have the wrong tone and they don't realize it because they don't hear themselves, they end up in issue. So I always encourage leaders, record yourself, take a video of yourself, play it back, listen to yourself. And we don't like to listen to ourselves as humans because we don't like how we sound, we don't like how we look. But as a leader, it is so important for you to understand how you sound. All right? And I want you to pay attention to the feedback that you get from persons, especially when they're angry. Because when people are angry, somehow they're emboldened to say what they really feel. All right. So you want to throw away the meat because some people can be mean when it is they're upset. But it's so important for you to pay attention because that's when they may have the boldness to say to you some of the things that you need to hear. And if it is you are hearing the same comment about yourself over and over and over and over again, you need to pay attention to it. So would I say that authority and leadership are the same thing? So I'll answer you in a minute. It's not the same thing, but I'll answer you in a bit. That's an excellent question. So your tone is very, very important. All right, your tone is very important. So let me give you for an example. If it is I say, all right, let me give an example. I often use this example when I'm doing training. So, did you hear that the guy down the street died this morning? So that's one tone. Sounds concerning. The guy down the street died this morning. If I say it like this, did you hear the guy down the street died this morning? Now that tone is a very different tone to the first tone. The first tone, because my voice was lower, and I spoke slower, just appeared to be more serious and more fitting of what I'm speaking about. But when I go high-pitched, I speak a little quicker, it more speaks to celebration. Or in our local terms, if you're talking about something serious and you use that celebratory tone, you're going into a bacchanal state. So you're looking now for what is the bacchanal that this person going to say now about this person who died this morning down the street. And it may be, and those are two very simple examples. But you're going to find when you sit in the leadership position, who you are as a person is still there. And if you use the wrong tone in the wrong situation, you can cause more challenges for yourself. Or sometimes you need to use a tone that is reconciliatory. You may need to use a tone of humility. Leaders need to be able to know which tone to use when and master using it. But you have to be genuine. You don't want to be fake because people can see through fake. You want to be genuine, all right? But your tonality is very, very important. Body language and posture is the next one. Very, very big. You must have a posture of believability, even in your speech. If you don't believe you, no one will believe you. All right. So sometimes I would hear leaders speaking, might be on the radio, the television, and they sound as if they don't know what they're saying, and they may be saying something that is very true and with a lot of value. But the way in which they say it, their whole deportment, their whole demeanor, their whole disposition, their facial expression just appears as if they're not even interested in what they're saying. So I'm not interested. All right. And so it's very important. I'm not talking about emotionalism because you don't have to be emotional, right? But at the same time, don't be unemotive either because we are emotional creatures and that's how we connect with each other. All right. So you want to be able to master that delicate balance with your body language, even the posture, the way you enter a room tells me something about you. All of that is part of communication. All right. So you want to enter a room as if you're bringing value into the room. Not as if you're the best thing in the earth, but at the same time, you don't want to come into the room lacking confidence, lacking assertiveness. It shows and it speaks volumes. You cannot hide as a leader, so don't try to. Don't try to. It just makes you look as if you lack confidence and as if you think you should not be in the position. You can't hide, so don't even try to. All right? And the last thing I will touch on before I answer the question and then we wrap up is actions. That is another big part, huge, huge part of communication and of language. You want to put your money where your mouth is. That's what that saying is. Action speaks louder than words. Action speaks louder than words. So you want to be able to take action that is consistent with what you say. Many leaders say one thing and then do another. People will believe your actions over your words, and you can communicate with your actions. I remember working for one organization, and one of the hallmarks of my leadership is that I believe in respect. It's just something that I believe in. I believe in respecting people, and I believe that I get more out of them when I respect them because people get more out of me when they respect me. Simple. And I believe as leaders, when you give respect, you get respect back. Respect is earned. All right. And you ought to respect people. And I believe you need to respect people just for being a person, regardless of what they do. Respect the person for being a person. You don't have to have a position or come from a particular background to get my respect. You get my respect simply because you're human. All right. That level of respect. And then there's professional respect. I respect your advice, your professional advice. I don't bring an expert into my space and then refuse to take their advice. That's disrespect. I want to consider that advice in my whole considerations when I'm making a decision as a leader. That's one level of respect. And then there's the positional respect for the office. You give respect to someone because they hold a particular office. All right. And sometimes that's important because sometimes the people in the office you may not respect, but you deal with them a particular way because you respect the office. Have all of that. Have all of those dynamics. All right. And so I believe in respect. And I remember coming into this organization and holding this position of leadership. And I realized that respect was just not a thing in the organization. In fact, disrespect was a part of their culture and I couldn't understand it. And so in having meetings with the leadership team, that was one of the first things I had to set straight. Like, we are going to start respecting people. because you want me to respect you. It feels good to be respected. And if you understand that it feels good to be respected, and this is something that you can offer to someone else, and they're going to feel good and then be able to build camaraderie and all of these other elements that we need in order to succeed. And I put my money where my mouth is. Something as simple as telling everybody good morning or good afternoon, from the security to the janitor, the receptionist, everyone, everyone. Because the same way that you can tell the CEO and all the executives and everybody, board members, good evening, good morning, you can do that with the security and the janitor and everybody else. That was the standard. That's what you had to do. And I took a very hard hand on managers that continue to perpetuate disrespect. That is the action coming in there now. Because if I said it and then persons continued going along their merry way and ignored me, and I took no action to back up what I said, then there's no way what I said would get traction, right? And stick. And so I had to be serious and take a very firm hand with managers who continue to display disrespect to their team members and other members of staff. And after a while, the new culture became one of respect. Respect became embedded into the culture of the organization. And in fact, when leaders take action that are in line with what they have said, that is one of the big ways to change organizational culture. Big ways. When persons tell me about organizational cultures, and I understand organizational culture is not easy to change, but it can be changed. I've done it already more than once. And it talks about, and it deals with leaders at the top, aligning what they say with what they do. And it may even require changing out HR policies. It may require changing out people in certain positions in order to get the actions to align with what you have said. All right? Very, very important. And the actions may be rewards, it may be sanctions, but you have to. It's so important that you allow your actions to line up with you, because your actions are powerful communicators and they form part of your language as a leader. All right? So, getting ready to land the plane. So, I'm going to answer Nat's question on, would you say that authority and leadership are the same thing? They are not. All right? So, authority is it's more formal, it's a formal element. And those formal elements, hey, Avi, those formal elements are attached most times to positions. So a position comes with a certain level of authority. And the truth is that some of the persons that are in leadership positions are not real leaders. Ouch. And I always say, when you see someone in a leadership position, it is a signal that they ought to be a leader, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are really and truly what a leader should be. All right? And so it is so important for us to understand the dichotomy between the two. All right, now leadership, just to define it for you, it's that ability to influence others to take action. Leadership is not management. All right, and if it is you can influence others to take action, then you would have led. And the thing is, you don't need to have a position in order to lead. And that is why there's something called informal leaders. They're the people who have no position title, but they wield so much influence in the space that they can actually start a mutiny against you, the former leader. All right? The former leader has the authority, but it is the informal leader who has the influence, and that is the real leader. That is where influence is circling. All right? And I've dealt with a lot of clients who have that issue. They have informal leaders in their organization, keep overthrowing them, keep making things difficult for them, because the authority and leadership is sitting in two different places. And so I always advise my clients, as I will advise you guys on today. As a formal leader, you should always seek to also be the informal leader. The informal leader is the one who has the influence that people willingly give them. People made a decision to willingly follow the leader. That person is the informal leader. The formal leader is the one with the authority, because authority is usually attached to a position and it is a formal element of the leadership dynamic. All right? Leadership goes beyond a position. All right? Leadership goes beyond a position. And I'll say, like Avanel, because she's in an NGO, that's a different dynamic. Very different dynamic. So some persons may be paid, some persons may not be paid. And even if people are paid, they wouldn't be paid market. And because they're not paid market, your leadership now has to come out so strong, because people are going to buy into your vision. They're going to buy into the journey. They're going to buy into what we're seeking to do. It's going to be bigger than me. And that is what people are going to latch into and want to follow her or whomever else is in leadership with. That's what they're going to follow. Just consider doing that in a paid environment, what happens? Consider that doing that for your children, where your children want to willingly follow you. They want to willingly come after you. They want to willingly give you influence over them. You have to earn that. All right. And that is why leadership is so powerful. When people willingly give you the opportunity to influence them and to follow you, that's huge responsibility. That's huge responsibility. And that is why leadership is so powerful. But you're going to find, last thing I'm going to say, what you're going to find, people who rely on their positional power to get people to move sometimes become so distressed when people don't respond to the positional power. Because positional power is much weaker in its impact than leadership. If you learn to lead persons, the skill of leadership, of being able to get persons to willingly choose to follow your lead and to go with you on your vision, on your journey, it will always outstrip positional power. Saying, I always say, if you follow me for a while, you know it. Managers get people to do what they want, but leaders get people to want what they want. And if you can get people to want what you want, you don't have to overlook them all the time. Because they wanted to, they're going to get up and find a way to do it. They're going to be energized to do it themselves because they want it also. And that's the skill. Yes? Yes. It's two completely different things, two completely different horses. And I will tell you this, I have learned, because I've led in an environment where we weren't paying people, complete volunteers. If you can get people to move and be excited and motivated for a consistent period of time to get a goal accomplished, it's very, very different than if it is you have people being paid to work. Because that in itself is a motivator. People don't want to lose their jobs because they have the mortgages. It's not really you. You don't have you're not pulling them to you. What it is, they're trying to avoid a catastrophe in their lives. But imagine bringing this powerful skill set of getting people to follow you, not because they're being paid, but because they're choosing to do it. The kind of magic that you will create, the kinds of things that you can get done, because people are now willingly doing it for you. And it's something to behold over and over and over and over again. And I'm a firm believer that leadership can be learned. It's a learned skill. It's a learned skill. It's not always that leaders are born. Leaders who are born are just those who have the natural skill set, like natural footballers or cricketers. But if they don't go and practice and learn the proper techniques, they will never be great in their craft. And it's the same thing with leadership. You may be born with certain leadership abilities and skill sets, but if you do not come and learn the techniques, and let me tell you, leadership is a science. I've studied this thing. Besides the art of it, it's both a science and an art. All right? And I just, how I always use that example in explaining science and art, especially in leadership. The science of leadership is like if it is making a macaroni pie, or let me say in the US, they say baked mac and cheese, right? You may have a recipe, And the recipes is science. If you add this and you add this and you boil the macaroni and you do this, you get a result, a macaroni pie. The art comes in now when it is you start to bake that macaroni pie over and over again, and you start to put your own twist on it. You start to put carrots in it, and you start to put your own 3 types of cheeses, and you put your own flavor to it to get your own outcome, to get it to come out a particular way that satisfies you, to cause a particular goal to be accomplished. That's where the art comes in. Art comes in with practice so that they can drop you in any environment and you understand the science, you understand people, you understand the dynamics, the relationships, and how they work. It then makes you more and more skilled, and your art form comes out even better. So, leadership is both a science and an art. And so it's so important, even if it is you have that natural skill set. You are born leader. You have to learn the techniques. You have to learn the craft. You have to learn the true skills behind it. And that is what's going to make you an exceptional leader. All right? So, guys, time to land the plane. And again, for those who might have missed the previous videos, we have them on YouTube as well as some other leadership videos. And again, if it is you need to meet with me, just book an appointment through one of my sites, safiagroup.com, safiajohnson.com. It's a 15-minute to 20-minute or even a half an hour, depending on how the time goes. It's absolutely free. Chat with you to understand where you are and help you to determine your next best steps. All right. But when it comes to this space of leading in this national sphere, we talked about language today. And what language encapsulates, from vocabulary to tone to body language to your actions. They all come together. They all come together. All right. And you want to use language that will help you in your leadership journey. It will help you to accomplish the goals. All right. You're not here by chance, as I started off today. And I don't know why I started off today like that. You are not placed on this earth to just exist. You were placed here with a very specific design, with a very specific purpose. Go off and accomplish it. Yes, you may be fearful, but feel the fear and do it anyway. Do it anyway, because the world needs you. All right? Guys, I'm signing off. It was my distinct pleasure to be with you today. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. And we will be back here for our final session on national leadership next week, Monday at 8. All right. And tell me if it is you think we should continue the sessions, whether we should continue Mondays, whether we should continue at 8. And just give me your feedback. All right. And then after next week, we'll make the decision whether to continue. But next week is going to be our 10th and final session when it comes to national leadership. All right. I'm thinking to go into some other sessions afterward in terms of the other aspects of leadership, even in a business or an NGO environment or public. There are different aspects that you have to understand when it is you're leading, all right? And so, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate all the feedback. Signing off now. Bye. Stay good.